Talk about the step down a spark and there is this demand increasing which of AI, which says there are no concerns on conduct or governance. We have decided flag the values and ethics. The bank stands out any concerns that admits the differences in thinking the subsides. Brent jumps to near $112 per barrel after Israel attacks Iran's South Hour gas fields. Iran retaliates, targeting assets across Gulf, sparking sharp surge in oil and gas prices, dropped the United's US indices. Axis Bank's chief economist projected Israel expected to recession period and for 4 weeks. He sees the market going into panic if the war doesn't end by mid-April and second order impact become visible. We're talking about first consecutive days for the market. Most of that is reversed because of what happened in the night. Again, it is all about what's happening in West Asia, specifically and this meeting because led to housing markets falling. This is honestly yesterday as a 250 mark with this accident came from the stocks and bank nifty. There has a clear impact on the disruption before the day as well. Yes, continues to be a downgrade. The growth in the economic transmission, all the firms are falling anywhere between 2.7 to 3.1%. The idea of the technical indices, they are in the red as we speak. While even if we cross most of them in the red as well, something is very difficult to implement. It is difficult way for the market, like you said, all the sectors are trading in the red. Just 2 days, we have Nifty 50 that are trading in the green right now. Is ONGC falling down, means the purple will be in the red green. That is interesting to see what that means, but ONGC is the only one stronger. Yeah. Now, when you talk about like the mentioned broader diplomatic factors are under pressure, but interestingly, some of the names that are coming into the gamer side from the Nifty 500, around global banks, Acme Solar, Vibrato, Economic, subsequently protest. Clearly today, with one of the pressure in there, Raja Federation, all the cities in the payment transactions, the Rajas 50 continues to, through the day so far has been down 500 pounds. There's no sort of yes, absolutely. And it's really just an India problem at this point in time. This is obviously what we are seeing across the globe. So look at what happened with Asia. We have the Japanese markets, which is down around 3.3%. We have the Hong Kong markets, which are down over 1%. The Kospi, which is down around 1% as well. Remember that many of these markets, such as the Taiwanese, such as Kospi, have been outperformers this year. That was one of the key worrying parameters is the low ratio versus 60 high. So currently we have around 5 stocks which are at 60 close as compared to 1 stock which is at 60 high. So that's possibly one of the key parameters to watch in terms of the sentiment of this market, which will be extremely in today's trading session. It's very important. The top dimension. Getting this price of the gas state. Now, what's trending segment? I'll take the discussion forward with Matrix Global's Richard Golia. We will also be focusing on HDFC Bank and bring you insights into the boarding tussle and what the management have to say. We will also be speaking to management of MCure Pharma ahead of the semaglutide patent expiry. Okay, let's start with our what's trending segment for today. We are tracking disruptions in global energy market, reacting sharply to reports of key gas infrastructure being targeted in the Gulf area. Solar is here now, a little bit more, but explain us, what this, we'll also obviously continue this conversation with the first resort on what this impact is and what the policy. So, while the global energy market is reacting to a series of developments across key gas infrastructure, the South Pass North Dome gas field, the world's largest natural gas field, has come under attack. The field holds an estimated 48 trillion cubic meters of gas, which is accounting roughly 25% of the global proven reserves. It forms the backbone of gas production for both Iran and Qatar and is central to the global energy supply. At the same time, Ras Laffan Industrial City, which is Qatar's main LNG export hub, that has been targeted too. Ras Laffan handles approximately 77 to 80 million tons per annum of LNG exports, that is close to 20% of global LNG trade. But supplies primarily going to Asia and Europe. Any disruption here has direct implications for global gas availability. In the UAE, some gas operations have also been affected. The Hampton gas processing plant has halted operations. This is a key processing hub in the UAE's gas network and billions of gas per day. The disruption points to broader risks to energy infrastructure across the Gulf region. Now, how is responding to these developments? Oil prices have risen from $105 to $110 per barrel. Energy markets are also tightening tighter supply conditions now. We also see possibility of cargo rerouting from their risks. Taken together, these events impact a significant portion of the global energy system. Around 25% of global gas reserves are linked to the affected field. Nearly 20% of LNG trade is exposed to this, and close to 20% of global oil flow to this broader region. The key takeaway is on supply timelines. So even if the Strait of Hormuz remains operational, energy supply from the Middle East is likely to remain constrained over the next few months due to the infrastructure disruption and precautionary shutdown. And that is very important. In fact, to take this conversation ahead, we have with us before the media, Mr. CEO, Mr. Global joining now. Richard, thank you so much for joining us. Two-part question here. How these are big numbers that we're talking about in terms of oil supply. If you can give us a sense of how big of a supply disruption are we looking at and how long will it be? Because even if the strait opens now, we do have production hits which are coming in. So what is your take on that?
That's the question. Thank you for having me. It's obviously very big. The strait itself is really the key. It being closed is the number one factor. The attack on infrastructure also has a dramatic effect, and we're seeing it. What we're starting to see is a bifurcated market. We're talking about LNG, which is obviously very important given the bombing of the field that happened yesterday. I think that field, while it supplies a lot of LNG to Iran, it's one of the major fields that Qatar uses for its LNG exports, which is the largest exporter of LNG in the world, approaching 20 to 25%. Also, affecting this is the amount of LNG cargo ships, that very sophisticated ships that are needed to move liquefied natural gas. So very important. That's one of the reasons why we're seeing a dramatic change here in price. So we need to be aware of what we're seeing, and when we talk about change in price, I said the market is bifurcated. One of the major things that's happening as it relates to the crude side of the equation is Brent. Brent is one of the key global benchmarks that most crude from Asia, Europe is priced on. That market's trading around $112 to $113, which I believe is the highest price it's traded at and will settle at since the beginning of this war. What's interesting is WTI, which is its counterpart, is trading almost $16 under the current Brent price. That, I believe, is probably the widest differential ever experienced between these two crudes. The reason that is important, it shows you where the market is focused. It's focused on the Gulf, the buyers that are buying from the Gulf, and this would be India, Europe, and China in particular. But this is the thing that's very important to realize. Now, you made a point about what does this mean in the future. And while we talk about the crude, as you say here, you can see the differential right there. That's the differential. Brent is at $5.83. WTI is only at 86 cents. The price of Brent 2 months out is $12 cheaper. And so the market is looking at this as at this point, it's very important. If you get exacerbated, that's the way to be aware.
Richard, well, as we speak, we have Brent crude, which is now spiked up to $113 per barrel. But If you have to narrow down geographically which region will probably see the maximum amount of impact because of these disruptions in the gas market, what would it be? Because most of the analysts are pointing towards Asia possibly bearing the brunt of the supply disruption.
It will be. It'll absolutely be Asia. Remember, the U.S. is the second largest exporter of LNG, and most of its LNG is going to end up going to Europe. So the greatest impact on the LNG side and on the crude side is going to be in order Asia, to China, and India. Those two are going to come right in front of us. Now, while we talk about the crude price here, which is interesting, we're looking for $113, the product price is also extremely high. When you look at the price of gas oil, which is distillate, which is the most utilized or the most highly demanded product in Asia, the price of a barrel there is over $212 a barrel. So we're seeing not only a dramatic effect on crude and on LNG, we're seeing a dramatic effect on distillate prices as well.
Richard, Swami mentioned very nicely in your link right now that with 25% of global gas reserves that are at risk, the 40% LNG trade that is exposed, 20% oil flows that are going through this conflict as well. Now, especially because of LNG, the issue that comes in. What do you see in terms of data that states that we are dependent on the US? Is there anything in terms of data or percentage of there? How much we may be eligible for that makes that one of the
Well, the market will bid it away, right? Basically, what happens is if the differential, in this case, we look at just the crude differential, but we look at the LNG differential between an LNG cargo loading in the Gulf Coast of the United States and LNG cargo elsewhere, which is Portugal, which can't get out. The market will say, well, I need supply, and it will bid up the price of the LNG in the Gulf Coast of the United States and try to move it to the London. LNG is a long-term project, so much of it's already spoken. Under the Biden administration, for whatever reason, they delayed a number of LNG facilities. Fortunately, under Trump, we've seen those facilities, we've seen new facilities come online. I think the new one just came online. It will allow the U.S., which is a very large exporter of natural gas and producer, to move it to other parts of the world.
So, the US is the biggest exporter of gas prices. If you can give us a sense of how gas prices move higher, we have the Korean market. Are we seeing prices differentiating there as well? How we are seeing it food prices? And prices go higher. Do you think, do you think this disruption continuing beyond because then how gas prices will be benefited?
Well, the U.S. in a way, U.S. producers and refiners are benefiting from this, right? They're receiving higher prices for the goods. Now, LNG, or natural gas in the United States, is still relatively higher. It's trading around $3.27 a MCF. So, just like we see trading at probably the widest differential to WTI, $15 to $16, same thing applies to the natural gas price in the U.S. versus natural gas prices elsewhere. And that will continue over time as long as the Gulf stays closed. This continues, then we're going to see U.S. prices rise to basically meet the world prices. But that is going to take time. Your analysts are getting said it's going to take time for this market to find equilibrium. And the way it does that is it moves excessive capacity in one region to another to take away the price. But when you're removing 20% of supply in the world, it is very difficult to find a balance. And the only way you do that is through demand destruction and lower economic activity.
Okay, all right, so we're going to leave it on that note. Thanks very much for joining in and giving us all of that perspective with regards to the gas prices as well as went through. We need to take a short break, but on that note, on the other side, we'll get you a lot more on the markets as well as stocks.
अगर हर जगह फुल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी चाहिए तो इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में क्यों नहीं? अब अपने इन्वेस्टमेंट्स को फुल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी का एडवांटेज विद फ्लेक्सी कैप फंड। फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। योजना संबंधी सभी दस्तावेज सावधानी पूर्वक पढ़ें।
Can I not have but a
यही तो आपसे नाता है। अब इन्हें हम आसानी से लोग
Your exit का टाइमिंग परफेक्ट होना चाहिए, इसलिए कोटक नियो का स्ट्रैटेजी ब्राउट रखो।
Stay paid with Kotak Neo and automate your trades with Strategy Forge. Investments in securities markets are subject to markets. Read all related documents carefully before you start. अगर शूज में फुल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी चाहिए तो इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में क्यों नहीं? अब अपने इन्वेस्टमेंट्स को फुल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी का एडवांटेज विद फ्लेक्सी कैप फंड। फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। योजना संबंधी सभी दस्तावेज सावधानी पूर्वक पढ़ें।
This is Network 18. You're watching CNBC TV.
far too much baggage.
Welcome back to Market Report on CNBC. The 18 Nifty is where we started it, right? 23,300 target levels is what it's trading at. But let's move on to talk more than just the 18, right? Morgan Stanley's Garner says that they continue to highlight that nation is important than other regions too. The onward seeds oil, LNG and other products to agriculture, industrial production, including India, India, South Africa, they would expect Asian markets to serve down towards their export market, which is 15-20% below the levels. Have bearish move coming in from Morgan Stanley there. You're now used to new companies, which is certainly with capital economics. Instead, he sees significant risks of recession if the war lasts beyond 4 months.
Remember that 7% of world energy supply is blocked. If this lasts more than 4 weeks, 4 more weeks, I think there will be the risk of a severe recession. And it's not the problem. So how long can it really exist? We need to start with how you can they are actually encouraging China to become better with that. Becoming pyramid and to make them do this. People will start doing that in very bad from the country. So, it was not the comment party for the markets going down and that's when perhaps the end of the round will be. So I would expect this to last a year.
In fact, Nathan Mishra also spoke on the second order effects, while the National CR says continued disruption could impact raw material prices. Listen to that.
India has substituted to some extent the gas that was sent in amusement power plants, shut that down, and of course switching to coal. Other countries will do the same. Some have reduced the less economically important parts of their economies. So maybe 1 or 2% will offset, but 4 to 5% of impact on world GDP this last 1 year is I think. And remember that there are second order effects to that. The second order effects will be, but now the reason why I think everyone, including companies and markets and investors, are reluctant to sell, and frankly, from one perspective, that is the right thing to do at this stage. But this inventory won't last forever. And I think these supply chain disruptions will get really extreme with every passing day. And at some point, I think the markets are likely to panic.
Raw material inventory is very, we are now holding very low inventories for domestic raw materials, but international raw material, domestic will be just about double-digit in terms of number of days. International raw material is higher, so overall weighted average would be close to at least states suspended. We have to make sure we are doing that to keep the Olympics healthy for Europe, Latin, and the US and Southeast Asia, so that we can manage our sales on this point. But Middle East sales is currently increasing. On the raw material side, also the freight is done. So freight is going up, which we are trying to mitigate from the customer side. And container availability, I think increasingly will be an issue, which could be a disruption.
Lightning.
The overall What about Mother going to sip in a very short break after the break? We'll be joined by the management of Impure Pharma, and we'll be discussing more into semaglutide opportunity as well. Stay tuned.
Damage.
मेरा रुतबा है मेरा सिग्नेचर मेरा जज्बा है मेरा सिग्नेचर Nepal है मेरा सिग्नेचर सिग्नेचर फाइल्स से बना चाहिए a premium product from the Bar Group. अगर शूज में फुल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी चाहिए तो इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में क्यों नहीं अब अपने इन्वेस्टमेंट्स को फुल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी का एडवांटेज विद फ्लेक्सी कैप फंड्स म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है योजना संबंधी सभी दस्तावेज सावधानी पूर्वक पढ़ें But I recommend you pay from a chart. Stay pays with product deal and trade directly from charts. Investments in securities are subject to markets. Read all related documents carefully before investing. मेरा रुतबा है मेरा सिग्नेचर दुनिया की सोच से ऊपर विभाग है मेरा सिग्नेचर सिग्नेचर फाइल्स से बना चाहिए a premium product from the Bar Group. अगर हर जगह फुल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी चाहिए तो इन्वेस्टमेंट में क्यों नहीं अब अपने इन्वेस्टमेंट्स और फुल फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी का एडवांटेज विद फ्लेक्सी कैप फंड म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है योजना संबंधी सभी दस्तावेज सावधानी पूर्वक पढ़ें
This is Network 18. You're watching CNBC TV.
back. You're still tuned into Halftime Report on CNBC TV 18. Well, it's a down day for the markets, but there is one particular piece of news that the street will be looking at quite closely. Now, enter Pharma is the first management on the show, and the reason we're joining us is that the weight loss drug semaglutide's patent is set to expire in India. Several pharma players are eyeing a foray into the fast-growing weight loss market. In this backdrop, Novo Nordisk has partnered with Emcure to market and distribute its blockbuster obesity drug under the brand name Pavitra in India. We have with us Satish Mehta, who is the MD and CEO of Emcure, joining in to discuss the opportunities ahead for the company. Mr. Mehta, thank you very much for when exactly does semaglutide go off patent? Is it on Saturday? And how many companies are expected to launch the drug in the Indian market? There are estimates of around 50 companies launching. Is that the case? And when would Emcure be placed, considering that we do have a tie-up with Novo Nordisk, which is the innovator of the drug?
Thank you very much. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to join your show. As far as the payment is concerned, LOP is going to happen from 21st of this month. And I don't know how many companies, but to the best of my knowledge, almost about 50 brands are going to be marketed. So obviously, all the companies that pick up this particular product is a big opportunity. And I've been in the industry for for 4 decades. This is probably one of the probably good sign of a lot of stuff, which is going to be getting the market in the course of time, in the financial period. And they're talking about maybe economies are being thrown. Somebody is talking about $50 million property, somebody talks about $500 million sometime back. They're also talking about $1 billion opportunity in our country. And the recently, as far as India is concerned, we put $50 million price of obesity, and $350 million to abdominal obesity. So we understand it's a huge market. So obviously, I understand the feel that this should be a big opportunity. That's what so please associated with 3 months back, and we have marketed the product. And to that extent, Pavitra, the brand, because it's very good. In addition to that, the products we are very essentially focusing on the science and technology behind the product. Because one thing that is required to be understood, this is not a tablet, it is getting genericized. This is not, which is a biologic, it's an RNA molecule. The solubility of the product, is hardly 1% highly insoluble compound. So what will be watching with interest about how the market plays out, and there will be a lot of, I would say, competition, price war will also going to happen among some of the generic players. In that, as far as we are because of our association with the market, we will be focusing on science, we will be focusing on technology, we also the clinical trials of generic drug. Yeah.
Point is taken, but I have a two-part question. One is that you will not be launching your version of semaglutide in the market. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Strategy.
But if you just look at the numbers in terms of how Novo Nordisk is in the market as X in the child, you have massive revenues, 50% Jalo that massive is going to get more competitive with women selling from see Foxley consumers getting them
and the other thing that is something that is this responsibility of management also the possibility. Also, that's for example, provided to so that the development technology as without all research to develop this traditional some access, they the provision of this
On that itself, since you're saying there are 50 companies that will be launching it, you are doing it with your innovator here, and it's a huge market again. It's a lower capacity. So what really diluted on a daily basis, it saves culture increases if you're
difficult sales from the restaurants industry and everything should be the money. But as I feel that this particular strategy and price basically wanting the premium price that might be. Because it's having so much initial market.
would it be possible to tell us what the pricing is for your side of the drug? Ms. Mehta, we had Mr. Bakshi of various life sciences actually mentioned that there's a possibility that the prices could fall to around 400 rupees per injection on a weekly basis. Do you think that that's possibly going to be the type of price reduction that we're going to see? Is that a realistic number to use?
I don't think you can go actually it's not going to happen. The one that is very important to the side. And you know, it's so price.
Okay, take up points. 400 is not price that you think would be increased in data stuff. Before we let you go, quickly, Mr. Mehta, we've seen what's happening in the stress area. Is it something which is impacting the supply side? What kind of inventory is the industry having, particularly for employers?
That has to be that's the stock because the first technology. So I think it's the position in next 10 to 15 days going to be some closure. Otherwise, they will not think about this to also be people about that. And so you have to be planning that and second time, you need 24 people millions of people. Continuing so we are saying it a lot. In that case, we know this is still strong and bad.
Okay, if it continues beyond April, then that is possible for everyone. But thank you so much, sir, for joining us this afternoon, speaking with us in terms of some of the opportunity, as well as in terms of any concerns that come going forward. Let's see what continues. Now that we're going to set it over. Very short break. After break, we'll come back with more stock specific activities. People.
Welcome back to Switch in the Halftime Report. Well, the big story today, of course, is the HDFC Bank. The part-time chairman, Daniel Chakrabarti, calls he resigned, citing ethical concerns. But the management says that Chakrabarti's exit is not linked to the bank's conduct. Ritu is joining us to give us more details on this one. Ritu, over to you.
Well, it is a sudden and rather sharp exit at the very top for HDFC Bank. Daniel Chakrabarti resigning as part-time non-executive chairman and independent director with more than 1 year, by the way, still left in his term at the bank. Now, what is striking about this is how he exited, because in his letter, resignation letter, Chakrabarti pointed to, and I quote him, certain happenings and practices within the bank over the last 2 years that are not in accordance with my personal values and ethics, end of quote. Now, that is a very strong statement that naturally raised some questions, but almost immediately you had both the bank and then later the regulator itself moving from words beyond the very statement commenting on a specific bank said HDFC Bank remains fundamentally sound with its professionally run board and no material governance concerns that are on record, and importantly RBI said it will continue to stay engaged with the management going forward. Now, that's exactly what we had reported early this morning, and meanwhile you had the bank also appointing HDFC Group veteran KPMG as the interim part-time chairman for 3 months with RBI's approval. Our sources have been indicating this exit was not triggered by any regulatory issue. Neither the RBI nor the bank pushed for Daniel Chakrabarti's exit. It's very much an individual decision, but there were internal differences. We've been told that friction had been building for some time, largely around Chakrabarti's functioning style, which was seen by some as more executive in what is meant to be a non-executive role. In fact, the resignation appears to have caught the board off guard, and no detailed explanation was really shared with them beyond what the letter said, even when Daniel Chakrabarti was specifically quizzed about it in the board meeting. Now, on the phone call today, KK Mystery was categorical that there was no specific governance lapse that was ever flagged to the board as per concerns relating to values and ethics that were pointed out by Daniel Chakrabarti in his letter. KK Mystery made a rather strong statement, and again I quote him, at the age of 71, I would not have taken on this role if the bank's governance did not align with my values and integrity. You also had CEO Sashidhar Jagdishan on the phone who called it an unfortunate event and said the bank will now look at the organizational structure. Interestingly, ending with the statement saying the best of the bank will now start. So yes, strong words from the outgoing chairman, but equally firm reassurance from the RBI and HDFC Bank as what's next. The bank will now first need to find a permanent chairman, but will also have to potentially look at extending Sashidhar Jagdishan's role as MD and CEO with his current term ending in October, and of course manage this organizational restructure while navigating a critical phase of its merger integration.
Okay, Ritu, thank you so much for that. And Ritu was also highlighting some of the commentaries that came in the phone call as well. Obviously, after Daniel Chakrabarti's exit, interim chairman KK Mystery said that the chairman's exit is not linked to the bank's conduct or the regulatory concerns. CNBC TV 18, a Newsway, that is something that is going to listen to.
On behalf of the board and its full concert with the executive leadership, I wish to assure all stakeholders that there are no material matters at this point of time. Based on our discussions, there was no specific happening and practices that were brought to our attention. There were no specific operational or other issues that have been highlighted. The board's oversight mechanism remains fully operational, and our collective commitment to protecting the interests of the institution, depositors, shareholders, and all stakeholders is completely and totally unwavering. This disclosure made it complete and transparent in line with regulatory requirements. as we move forward, we will sort of re-examine our organization structure, and with the consent and the advice of the board, we will announce it at the appropriate time. Not at this juncture without without the approval of the board, which I will take it up to them at the right time, before the financial year is finished.
Okay, so that's the MD and CEO of the bank clarifying on all of the concerns. But if you just look at the valuations across private banks, it's not just HDFC Bank, have cooled off from their peak levels, with most of the stocks now trading at a noticeable discount to their past one-year highs on a price-to-book value on an FY27 basis. So as you can see, HDFC Bank is currently at around 2 times, Kotak Mahindra is at around 2.6 times. We have Axis also, which is shaved off valuations at around 1.6 times, and ICICI Bank, which is also lower as compared to its peak valuation of around 3 times in the past 1 year. Similar case for IndusInd Bank, but possibly one of the more resilient ones at this point in time. But nonetheless, let's get more on the markets. We have Mangla now joining in to tell us more about what he's tracking in the F&O space. Mangla, over to you.
The good part is that there is no incremental selling, but the bad part is that there is a lot of selling nevertheless. Nifty is out about 540 points, left over by both the Nifty Bank as well as the IT index. The most support coming in from index majors. And in broader markets, they're down by almost over 2% for both the mid and the small cap indices. And if you look at the advanced decline as well, right? From the start of today's trading session, there has been that gap between the two which has been maintained, the declines and the advances. And by a factor of 5:1. So if you look at it, 23-2400 stocks which are in the red as compared to about 500-600 stocks which are in the green right now. The initial part of the decline that happened was on account of these book writers having covered their positions. Now that the market has found some sort of consolidation after the 500-point downtick that we've seen, 23,300 call has eliminated as a writer's favorite, and we've seen some writing on the 23,300 book and the 23,300 low. If you check the option writers position will also to support that typical 950 to 2320, remember, and it's solid to go at sometime the index is 20 to 955, and resistance is around 23,500. So these are a couple of important levels that we need to track on the frontline index. So let me support 20 to 950 comes up for you on the screen between 23,000 as well, and the supply starts around the 23,500 pounds. Apart from the usual suspects, we've been speaking about HDFC Bank, the oil marketing companies, etc. A couple of these stocks, the price of seeing a lot of stocks which is being added. Voltas and Fixing Tech. Voltas, remember, were a big mover in the recent past on the deep being concerned, and a belief that maybe this summer will be a lot better than the last summer. It turns out there are some shopping activities which are all on both Voltas as well as Fixing. So apart from the meetings, expect these are a couple of stocks.
Okay, take that point. Thank you so much for bringing us all these updates from the F&O space, Mangla. Let's get in Ashish Kyal, CMT, author of Vedic Strategy Advisors, joining us now. Ashish, what is this important level you are for?
Hi, welcome to you and all the viewers. If you look at Nifty, the prices have been showing volume on either side, not only down. And if you look at past 2 days of movement, we saw a sharp reversal of yesterday of nearly 700 points from 22,950 towards the level of around 23,848.50 levels. So there has been sharp reversal yesterday. But every time market went to recover, it opens with a gap down of 500 points, which we have seen even now. So for me, the support is going to be at 22,950. There are still a lot of put sellers sitting at 23,000 levels. There are all sellers aggressively building up positions around 23,400. So it looks like market is going to be in a range with 22,950 is an important support and 23,500 to 23,550 is a hurdle. Having said that, I think the strategy over here is going to be very simple. Any break below today's low, which is around 23,180, can intensify the selling pressure. You might end up getting another 200 points on the downside towards 2,950. So avoid buying this market unless and until we start seeing some going activity amount with these markets. So 23,000 is the level and 22,950 is the support rate around.
Alright, Ashish, just hold that thought because we have Brent, which is now hit at $14 per barrel. Remember that in 2020, with the Russia Ukraine war, the high that Brent faced or sustained around this level was around 120. So do watch out for these levels. But nonetheless, Ashish wanted more thoughts on the banking space. The HDFC Bank, which is at a fresh 50 flow. A lot of the private banks are either close to those levels or fresh 50 flow. How do you approach it?
See, the main culprit is the sell-off that we have seen over the past 2 weeks. Banking has been a major hurdle because of which the entire sell-off is witnessed across the space. So if you look at Bank Nifty as of now, Bank Nifty is trading around $54 and the past 2-3 weeks of candle has been very strongly bearish. Nifty is a very 53,400. 53,400 is where we witnessed in August 2025 from where the prices are flat. So that's a very important support and that to be remaining intact. It's a very crucial price action area. And along with that, a few banks, including HDFC, has been in a severe sell-off of oversold territory. Today we have seen some kind of a profit, some kind of a rebounds along the upside. So the bank opened sharply lower at 759. Same kind of reversal, we're already at 812 and the gap period is at 832. So I think banking space as a whole can be oversold right now and we should start expecting some kind of a pullback eventually, but be very careful because these pullbacks are getting sold off with gaps on the next side.
Absolutely, happily cautious here as well. But Ashish, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on the show, giving us some of these important technical areas that we should keep an eye on. On that note, we're going to take a very short break. We'll come back after the break. We'll discuss more on markets, stocks, specific actions.
Hello.
Welcome back to Half the Report in CNBC TV 18. Nifty continues to be around the 23,250 levels. But now we have another stock in the Nifty that's moved to the green as well. Flip-flopping between the red and the green. That's Bharti Airtel. Apart from that, ONGC Coal India continue to be there, and private banks continue to be under pressure. But let's move on. Just on CNBC TV 18, that Prudential Corp is looking to exit ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. Yash is here now to give us more details on this one. Yash, over to you. What are you picking up here?
Well, Prudential Corporation has been a long-time partner for ICICI Bank in its life insurance journey in the country. But what we've been getting to understand from our sources now is that the company, that is Prudential Corporation, is looking to exit life insurance, ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. Remember, Prudential Corporation owns about 21.93% stake in ICICI Prudential Life Insurance, and they could look to monetize this particular stake, about 22% stake, either via block deal route or an offer for sale route, similar to what they did as far as the AMC business itself is concerned. Prudential stake in ICICI Prudential Life Insurance is valued at about 18,500 crore rupees. That is as per the current market cap of ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. And as far as its decision or intention of exploring this particular stake sale is concerned, what we've been able to understand from our sources is that Prudential Corporation is looking to get more control, more ownership in India's life insurance industry, and hence looking to sell this particular stake in ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. We are also going to understand the early indications that Prudential Corporation could be in conversations with Bharti AXA Life Insurance for acquisition of Bharti Life Ventures' entire stake in Bharti AXA Life Insurance Company. We've written to all parties involved in this transaction. A response will be awaited from all the parties.
Okay, all right. So we'll come back to you, Yash, when there are more updates on this. Thank you so much for joining us with all those details. So today we'll certainly another page and we come back to investing in the markets and some specific actions. Stay tuned with us. Also reached the markets. We have the Nifty, which is now down over 500 odd points. We have the mid-cap index, which is shared over 1,268.50. And just keep your eye out on the India VIX, which is the model volatility barometer. That one has spiked 15% and is now up 127% for the year. That's all the time that we have on the show, but do stay tuned. This is time to take a look at the action.
Want a solution.
Hello? When I was part of Piety's expedition into the Chamber of Sins,
Me look it! Oh, me darling, me beautiful melody. How I miss your shuddering bosom, your quivering thigh. She had a heart to melt an iceberg, and teeth the size of her. Ooh. Well, anyway, I thank you greatly. Please, whatever else be in that lockbox, take your pick from it. This locket be the only treasure I need.
Stocks see a deep reaction to the investigation funds out of control, financial, realty, and IT are getting dragged, while energy is the most resilient. Akaru Chakraborty steps down as part-time chair of HDFC Bank, and EP Mystery steps in with the consent of RBI, which says there is no material concern on conduct or governance, even as Akaru flags challenges its ethics. The bank stamps out any concerns but admits to differences in thinking with stock sliding. Brent jumps to near $112 per barrel after Israel attacks Iran's South-powered gas field. Iran retaliates, targeting assets across the Gulf, sparking a sharp surge in oil and gas prices. Trump denies U.S. involvement in Israel's attack. Axis Bank's chief economist Neelkan Mishra expects a global recession if the Iran war continues for 4 more weeks. He sees the market going into panic if the war doesn't end by mid-April and second-order impacts become visible. Hello and welcome to Business Lunch, live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio. I'm Arundhati Rangan, and with me as always is Harman Patakia. You're probably wondering where he is. He's at the wall and he's going to take us to what's happening with the market today, which the West Asia war has sent into a tizzy. Harman?
Indeed, and the 3-day recovery that we saw on the index turned out to be a very fragile one. We have almost given up 2/3 of that recovery already. And the biggest factor behind this fall today is a rise in oil prices. Oil prices yesterday were a little lower. Brent at one point had even threatened to break below the $100 a barrel mark. Today, it's at 114. That's the worry. The US crude is not seeing such a big price action, but Brent is the one, 6% higher now, $114. That's the first big one. The second big worry is the Nifty Bank. And the Nifty Bank today is down almost 1,600 points. Let's see some bit of recovery from the lows of the day. On last check, private banks so far have shaved off almost 85,000 crore rupees in market cap. And this slight bit of recovery that you see on the Nifty Bank is because of the recovery that is seen in HDFC Bank. At one point in pre-open, HDFC Bank was down 9%. And then you can see there is a bit of an intraday recovery that has been playing out over the last 30 minutes or so. Still down 3.5%. Still being the index heavyweight is the one that is down and is contributing the most to the Nifty downside as of now. But the 800 levels have been protected on HDFC Bank. That is the big positive so far, at least going into the second half of the trading session. But you see the pain in the broader markets. You take a look at the number of stocks that are in the green, they would either resemble a landline number or a pin code. You look at the Nifty, only 2 stocks in the green. Nifty 100, 5, Nifty mid cap 6, small cap 7, and the Nifty 500 and there's only 44 stocks in the green, which means that over 450 stocks in the Nifty Bank or in the Nifty 500 are trading with losses. Now take a look at the sectors where every single constituent is